Hello designer, take a seat, grab a drink. Today's video is going to be a good one, all about the dreaded product design interview process. Just kidding, interviewing can be tough, but it doesn't have to be so bad. With anything in life, I think a lot of it is about setting clear expectations for yourself and collecting information to set yourself up for success. By the end of this video, I hope to answer the main questions you may have about interviewing for roles as a product designer so you can go into your interviews prepped and ready to blow them away. Let's assume you've done the hard work to create a design portfolio and apply for jobs, and now you've finally heard back from a company who wants to talk to you about a role they are hiring for. Now that you're in, let's first talk about the typical interview flow. The first call will likely be with a design recruiter over the phone. The goal of this interview will be to get to know you and your background better, and for the recruiter to vet that your past experience actually matches what they are looking for with this role. This will also be an opportunity for you to ask questions back, and I will mention this a lot, but it's so important that you prepare questions you want to ask at different points in the interview so you can get to know the company better as well. You are interviewing them too, after all. If you make it past that round, you'll be set up with another call with the product design hiring manager, who's usually the person who will be managing the new hire and is responsible for the hiring project on the design side. Make sure you have a good shower and get yourself ready for the day because this call is usually done over video. This time, the hiring manager is trying to collect even more specific information about you and your background to see if your experience is what they're looking for in the role. Some of this call may feel redundant because the recruiter isn't actually on the design team and doesn't have the same sort of context that the hiring manager has. While the recruiter is trying to gather high-level information, the hiring manager will try to go deep. During this call, you may be asked to present one example project which will help the hiring manager to get a better sense of your design skills and the quality of your work. I hope this sort of thing doesn't come as a surprise to you because the recruiter should be prepping you with the expectations for each interview. But in the case that they leave things more broad, I think it's always best to have some sort of short portfolio presentation prepared before you start interviewing so that you can have it in your back pocket. And lastly, if you had any questions that the recruiter couldn't answer, now is a good time to get them clarified by the hiring manager. If you make it past that interview, this is where I've seen things sort of start to split. For entry-level roles, it's more common that you may be asked to do some sort of at-home design exercise where you're given a design problem to solve for with a set period of time to create the work within. In some cases, this work will be sent back to the team for review where you could either pass on to the next round or not. And in other cases, you may be asked to present the work to members of the team as a part of another interview. These at-home exercises are somewhat controversial in the design community, but for the most part, I think they are helpful for evaluating skills in entry-level designers, and it does give the new designer another opportunity to create new work and show off their skills. The most controversial type of at-home design exercise is when the company creates a challenge around their product or the industry that they're in. And it's controversial because some people feel like the sort of request is asking them to do free work for the company. Not to get too into the weeds with this, but I really don't think if a company is doing this that they are secretly trying to get you to do free work for them. In reality, it's very unlikely that you would create anything in just a few hours with limited data that could be used for real product work, but I do think it's best practice for companies to come up with unique and unrelated design exercises for their interview so candidates don't feel confused or worried that their work is being used in that sort of way. Ultimately, if you're interviewing and this comes up and you're uncomfortable with the request, just have a conversation about it with the recruiter and go from there. Contrast that with more senior level roles. It becomes way less common that you'll be asked to do any sort of at-home exercise, and that's because you probably already have plenty of professional design projects to show off your skills. So after all of these first initial interviews, the next round of interviews is called the Onsite, and in pre-COVID times, this is in reference to interviewing in person and on location at the office where the role is set for. Now that things are opening up again, these Onsite interviews may be in person again, but my hunch is that a lot of these interviews may still be completed online. During your on-site interviews, you will likely have 4 to 5 interviews with various members of your potential team. One of these interviews will likely be a larger group interview where you will be asked to present your design portfolio with 2 to 3 example projects. In the case that you didn't do an at-home design exercise, there may be some sort of interactive design interview that you'll be asked to participate in during these final interviews. And in some cases, you may have to do both. This could be some sort of design challenge, design critique, or a whiteboard challenge, which I think is becoming way less common now. The The goal of these interactive on-site interviews are often to see how you would work and collaborate with the different members of the team and to better understand your design thinking process. The other interviews are usually one-on-one interviews or small group interviews where you will meet with various members of the engineering team, product managers, and other members of the design team. In the case that you're interviewing at a startup, you may even interview with the company's CEO, which I think is really cool. The goal of these interviews is to better understand your process for how you would typically work with these various types of stakeholders. This is, again, another good opportunity for you to ask questions of the team to better get to know them and how they work as well. Upon wrapping up these interviews, you will likely meet with the hiring manager or recruiter again to ask any final questions that you may have about the company, team, or role. After that, it's kind of just a waiting game to hear back around whether or not you are going to be offered the position. It's typical that you are one of a few people that they are interviewing for this position, for the on-site interviews, and these can take some time to interview everyone and collect feedback. If you haven't heard back about an answer within 1 to 2 weeks, I think that's okay and pretty typical. If you're curious about where they're at with their decision, you should be able to reach back out to the recruiter to get any updates. All right, let's recap what we just went over and talk about some things you should make sure to prepare before going into all of these interviews. The first call is the call with the recruiter. For this meeting, you want to make sure to prepare questions you want to ask about the role as it relates to what was written on the job description. You may also want to prepare your salary expectations or at least have done some research so you know where you want to be if it comes up. Negotiating your salary though is a whole other conversation though, so we'll leave that for another video. In the call with the product design hiring manager, you're also going to want to have a list of questions prepared to ask them, which are more specific that the recruiter probably couldn't answer. You're also going to want to make sure that you've got your design portfolio work ready to present. It's likely you will only need to present one project at this time, and I usually recommend having this prepared in some sort of slide presentation, but do what works best for you. For the on-site interviews, make sure your full design portfolio is prepped and ready. Usually this will have 2 to 3 examples of your work along with an introduction into who you are. This is a great opportunity to talk about you as a person and talk about your background and your experience, as well as share what design skills you have that make you stand out. And for the small group interviews with the team, again, you're going to want to prepare questions to ask the engineers, product managers, and product designers around the team's culture and process. If you have an interactive interview during the on-site, I'm not sure that there's that much you can or should prepare, but I do know that some designers have shared their frameworks online for this sort of thing. So you could try to go seek that out. And if I think I can find any good resources here, I'll make sure to link them in the description below. But still, if you're not sure how to prepare, I'd recommend specifically asking the recruiter how to prepare, because I found with these sorts of interviews, what they are looking for from the interview could vary between companies. And that's that. Not too bad, right? Just as a reminder, depending on the company you're interviewing with, all of this could vary. So just be nimble and adapt as you go. But most importantly, remember that everyone just wants the best for you and wants you to succeed, even if you're not the right candidate for the role at this point in time. One last resource that could be helpful for you is a $10 PDF guide that I sell on my website. In this guide, you'll find details around how I recommend you design your design portfolio, as well as some tips to consider when preparing your portfolio for interviews. If you're interested in checking this out, I will make sure to link it below. And of course, let me know if you have any questions. So what do you think? Are you ready to take on your product design interviews? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And of course, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it or thought it was helpful. And if you're new here, I would love it if you'd be a subscriber. I make videos every week on this channel about design, careers in tech, and what it's like living and working remotely based out of San Diego, California. Okay, that's gonna be it. I hope to see you in the next video. That is all for now. Bye.